Selamat siang semuanya. Siang. Selamat datang di Ata Amerika. Nama saya Audrey dan saya di sini mau menjelaskan sedikit tentang Ata Amerika ya. Jadi Ata Amerika itu pusat kebudayaan Amerika pertama di dunia dan ini dimiliki oleh Kedutaan Amerika Serikat. Oke, yang kita miliki di sini baik banget dan kita ini berbasis dengan teknologi. Teknologi seperti apa? Jadi ketika Bapak dan Ibu sekalian masuk kan ada gambar di atas dinding itu. Nah, itu yang kita namakan bi-monthly theme. Jadi itu tema kita yang kita selalu ganti setiap 2 bulan sekali. Dan bulan ini temanya tentang Washington, tentang American Democracy, dan tentang Halloween juga. Jadi banyak banget informasi tentang Amerika, dan kita kasih tema tiap 2 bulan sekali kita ganti. Nah, selain itu juga kita teknologi ada banyak, ada printer 3 dimensi yang tadi ada di depan, lalu kita juga ada Google Earth, lalu kita juga ada Digital Library. Digital Library itu seperti apa? Itu buku-buku e-books yang ada di dalam iPad kita. Nah, jadi bagi yang sudah daftar jadi member, bisa tinggal kasih ID-nya aja, nanti boleh pinjam iPad kita untuk baca-baca, atau untuk mau browsing biasa, Facebook, Twitter juga boleh. Dan selain itu kita juga ada event-event di sini. Event-event kita ada apa aja? Kita akan mengadakan presentasi hari ini nanti jam 7 malam sampai jam 9 malam itu tentang Finding the Best Fit University. Jadi mungkin kalau ada yang mau melanjutkan studinya ke Amerika atau mungkin ada yang kenal kerabat-kerabatnya atau teman-temannya yang mau melanjutkan lagi, boleh nanti datang aja. Hari ini jam 7 sampai jam 9 malam, nggak ada registrasi dan nggak ada pungutan biaya. Nah, selanjutnya, selain itu kita juga ada workshop. Jadi Ata Amerika ini juga ada workshop itu seperti belajar bersama ya. Nah, ini kita akan mempelajari gimana cara bikin komik, the art of comic making. Nah, kebetulan sekali speakernya itu Sunny Go dari Stellar Labs. Dia pernah bekerja sama dengan Marvel dan DC Comics di Amerika. Jadi dia akan bercerita dan sharing gimana caranya membuat komik dengan konsep yang baik dan bagus. Nah, ini pertemuan kita yang keempat. Jadi kalau workshop itu mereka ada sesi. Nah, tiap-tiap sesinya itu nanti biasanya berkelanjutan. Jadi misalkan sesi pertama belajar tentang A, nanti sesi kedua belajar tentang B dan seterusnya. Nah, ini sesi keempat, nanti ada lagi tanggal 12 Oktober hari Sabtu, jam 12:30 sampai 3:30 sore. Nah, ini perlu registrasi, tapi bisa juga registrasi di Ata Amerikanya langsung. Datang aja lebih dulu jam 12 misalkan datang ke sini bisa registrasi duluan. Dan yang datang 95% attendance, jadi misalkan ada 5 sesi dan Bapak dan Ibu sekalian datang 4 sesi, nanti dapat sertifikat dari Ata Amerikanya. Nah, nanti boleh tinggal datang aja atau mungkin ada yang tertarik, mungkin kerabat-kerabatnya juga atau mungkin teman-temannya ada yang suka menggambar dan baca komik dan pengen tahu gimana sih workshop Ata Amerika tuh kayak apa sih, boleh silakan aja diajak. Selanjutnya kita juga ada presentasi, kita ada mini Education USA Mini Fair, tapi ini khusus untuk Midwest aja di bagian Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, Wisconsin. Nanti mereka ada Edu Fair di sini. Ini tanggal 14 Oktober, hari Minggu, jam 5 sore sampai jam 9 malam. Jadi ini ada 11 representatif dari university di Midwest. Nah, kalau yang tertarik boleh datang aja, mungkin mau sekalian bawa mungkin dokumen-dokumen dari sekolahnya yang sebelumnya, boleh dibawa aja, atau mungkin mau datang mau lihat-lihat aja juga boleh, silakan. Ini nggak ada registrasi dan nggak ada appointment. Selanjutnya nggak cuma hal-hal serius-serius aja, Ata Amerika juga ada konser. Nah, ini bagi yang suka musik, khususnya grunge music, itu kita ada kedatangan 2 band, Konspirasi dan Respito. Nah, ini mereka akan tampil tanggal 19 Oktober hari Sabtu jam 7 sampai jam 9 malam. Nah, salah satu penyanyinya kalau ada yang kenal nih ada Marcel. Jadi kalau misalkan ada yang ngefans mungkin sama Marcel, boleh datang aja, kali aja bisa foto-foto bareng ya. Nah, dan ini juga nggak ada pungutan biaya ya. Semua event-event di Ata Amerika itu tidak ada pungutan biaya. Jadi boleh ajak teman-temannya dan keluarganya rame-rame aja ke sini. Oke, selain itu kita juga ada Education USA, jadi bagi yang mau konsultasi, misalkan dari event-event kita yang tadi yang tentang education nggak ada yang bisa datang, itu nggak apa-apa, kita tetap ada konsultan di sini, namanya Rosa, nanti dia akan membantu gimana sih caranya mau apply ke universitas yang bagus-bagus di Amerika Serikat. Nah, selain itu juga bisa nanya tentang admissions, tentang kehidupan di sana sebagai student seperti apa, dan itu nggak perlu appointment dan free of charge ya. Nah, ini ini adalah schedule-schedule-nya Rosa tadi, hari Senin, Rabu, Jumat, Sabtu, dan Minggu. Nah, jadwal-jadwalnya juga bisa dilihat di website kita www.adamerica.org.id. Nah, ini adalah foto cuman segelintir dari acara-acara yang pernah kita adakan. Nah, kita udah pernah mengadakan 1.600 acara. Nah, ini adalah sebagian orang-orang yang pernah ke sini yang menjadi tamu spesial kita. Kita pernah ada kedatangan Miss Universe, kita pernah kedatangan Putri Indonesia dan Chef Windex juga. Kita juga pernah kedatangan, pokoknya banyak banget tamu-tamu yang pernah datang ke sini. Jadi untuk bisa update terus tentang event-event Atamerika tuh caranya gampang banget. Tinggal visit website kita www.atamerika.org.id. Nanti tinggal dimasukin emailnya dan password. Nanti kita akan kirim newsletter setiap hari Kamis atau Jumat setiap minggunya. Jadi nggak perlu buka website lagi. Nanti tinggal sering-sering buka email aja. Kita pasti emailin update terus setiap minggu. Jadi weekly newsletter ya. Dan ini jadi membernya juga gratis dan nggak perlu diupdate. Jadi it's a lifetime member gitu. Selain itu kita juga ada Facebook dan Twitter, jadi dari Facebook dan Twitter kita itu ada juga informasi-informasi mengenai event-event kita. Jadi kalau mau follow Twitter, itu bisa @Atamerika, twitter.com/Atamerika, bisa di follow. Kita juga ada Facebook fanpage, jadi mungkin yang mau ngelihat acara-acara kita yang dulu-dulu seperti apa, foto-fotonya ada semua di Facebook fanpage kita. Termasuk acara untuk hari ini, nanti akan ada yang foto-foto. Nah itu nanti akan kita upload ke Facebook fanpage kita. Nah selain itu juga bagi yang nggak bisa ikut event, bisa masuk langsung ke website kita. Di situ ada streaming online. Jadi misalkan malam ini ada yang mau ikut acara nanti yang jam 7 malam itu, tapi nggak bisa datang, bisa langsung ke website kita, nanti ada streaming online. Begitu pula dengan event-event selanjutnya, semua kita save di websitenya, jadi bisa langsung dilihat aja. Oke, tambah panjang lebar lagi, saya mau mengundang Ibu Clarinda Usman dari Smarty Ants Indonesia.
Good afternoon, selamat siang semuanya. Mungkin introduction-nya akan saya mulai dalam bahasa Inggris dan ada beberapa penjelasan dalam bahasa Indonesia. Ya, assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, we would like to thank Atamerika for this opportunity this afternoon that we are all here. My name is Clarinda. I'm the education consultant for Smarty Ants Indonesia, and I believe this is our event number 4. So we've been here quite a bit, so we are grateful to be here again. So Smarty Ants Indonesia is a partner of Smarty Ants US, and we have the founder and the CEO here who will share his presentation to all of us later. And Mike Wood actually founded Smarty Ants in 2006, and he started Leapfrog before that, and then some of you may know what Leapfrog is. It's permainan edukasi anak-anak yang bisa dipencet-pencet, mengeluarkan bunyi untuk belajar phonics. Mungkin ada yang sudah pernah dengar. Dan beliau menciptakan Leapfrog. Setelah itu beliau berhasil dengan Leapfrog. Beliau memulai Smarty Ants dan di tahun 2010 Smarty Ants dimulai di Amerika dan di Korea. In 2012 juga dimulai di Central America. So now in Indonesia we started in 2012 our operation, and then in April this year we actually started our first official class. Now we have close to 500 students. Can you believe it? We are counting, and we are so proud of it. And also we have different events. Smarty Ants had conducted a storytelling and story game show in May. We invited children from 9 different schools. They actually came up here. They did storytelling from our collection, from Candlewick Press, Smarty Ants books. And we will have another event in November, which is called Smarty Ants Short Play Contest. So during this contest, children will actually recreate the book, a short play, and they will be performing in group. And we are expecting 20 schools participating, 10 schools from elementary category and 10 schools from kindergarten category. So once again, we are very grateful of this opportunity to have been given the opportunity to work together and use the wonderful facility of At America. Please give a big round of applause to At America for supporting us. And now it is time for me to introduce Mike Wood, who will share his presentation about how assessment-based software can be helpful to children and educators. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Glenda. I think I don't need this.
You don't need this, okay.
So first of all, I'd like to say how grateful I am that all of you attended. I know you're all busy. Many of you are students. Many of you are teachers. And it makes me feel great that you are here, and I hope that what I have to say will be meaningful to you. This is my third visit to Indonesia. I'm the only American who's been to Indonesia 3 times and has never seen Bali. And if that's not true, I'm sure I'm the only American who's come to Indonesia 3 times and has never left Jakarta. But the next time I'm going to really travel and I'm going to see Indonesia. But what I have done this time in the last 3 days is I've gone to 6 schools. And I must say that I hope you are very, very proud of the job your teachers are doing here and of the opportunities that you're creating for your kids to become great students. I've met at these 6 schools some wonderful teachers and principals, and I've been inspired by these smart little kids who are learning like crazy and proud of themselves. It gives me really big hope for your kids and in some ways for all of our kids around the world. I want to change the tone just for a second. I feel like we live in very challenging times, and there's a lot to worry about, and there's lots of things that are going on out of ignorance and fear. It happens in America a lot, I know this. But I wake up every morning with an extraordinary feeling of hope. And the reason that I hold all of this hope, despite all of our challenges, is that I believe for the first time in history, we have the opportunity to give every single child in the world the opportunity to have a great education. Think about that. First time in history, every child in the world, and these are children regardless of where they're located, regardless of poverty, regardless of religion, regardless of anything, that all of these kids, we have the ability to give them the opportunity to learn to read and to go on and excel at whatever interests them and wherever their hopes and dreams lead them. And the implications of this are profound because well-educated kids have the ability to live great, hopeful, meaningful lives. They have the ability to lift their countries up because countries that elevate the kids who are most impoverished and give them hope and a chance to succeed, those countries work well. And in the long run, our whole world will function well only if all of these kids are brought out of ignorance and enlightened with education and given the hope to pursue their dreams. First time in history this has been possible. Now let me go back a little bit in an important bit of background, and that is in 1984, Professor Bloom did a seminal study, and what he did was he wanted to determine what would happen if kids each had personal one-on-one tutoring. If kids, instead of sitting in a classroom with 30 other kids, were given individualized tutoring. So he took a school and he took half of the kids in the middle of the class out. For the last half of the year, they each got a personal tutor. And at the end of the year, he took these kids who were at the 50th percentile. They were right in the middle of the class. By the end of the year, they were in the 98th percentile in terms of learning. All right? They moved 2 standards of deviation, and the only thing that was different in making that jump from 50%, from mediocre, from right in the middle, to the 90th percentile was personal one-on-one tutoring. Profound, profound result in insight, and incredibly discouraging in 1984 because, except for the extraordinarily wealthy, in 1984, nobody could afford to have a tutor teach every single kid every day in every class. Big frustration. So why would this be possible now? And it's the congruence of 4 major factors. Number 1, broadband access. Around the world, over time, increasingly, every kid is going to have access, some access, to basic internet interactivity. The second thing is the trend on tablets. There are now tablets that you can put and download an entire curriculum from pre-K through middle school, through college, through graduate school. Much of it free can be played through the internet onto these $50 tablets. So in essence, every little kid, wherever they are, can have a great primary school, a great middle school, a great high school, a great college, a great university in their pocket, right? It's also that people are now getting to have some acceptance, particularly among educators, that online education can be a meaningful contribution to the learning process. And finally, our kids now are digital natives. They're used to looking for knowledge and learning things and becoming curious and getting entertained online on these tablets. All of that makes this possible. Now, there are currently 3 major initiatives going on around the world in terms of online education. And I want to talk briefly about 2 of them, and then I want to spend the rest of the time I'm here talking about the third approach, which is we're a good example of them. So the first one, and some of you may know about this, was founded by a guy named Salman Khan, all right? And he was in his late 20s, and his brother called him and he said, your niece, Nadia, is having a very hard time in advanced placement math in high school. And he said, you've got a master's degree and a PhD. I want you to call and go online, and I want you to tutor your niece to see if she can get A's instead of C's in this advanced math. So he did. He went on every day. He went on Yahoo. He used the tool where he could write on the screen, and she could see what he was writing. And he gave her little 15-minute lectures on the math topic that she was on. And she said about halfway through, Uncle, I would rather you posted these on YouTube because I love your lectures, but sometimes I want to go back and hear them over 1 or 2 or 3 times to make sure I've mastered it. So he posted these little lectures on YouTube, and all of a sudden all of her friends were using those lectures, and they all got A's. Then what happened was he developed 3,400 videos. In the first 2 years, he had 2 million downloads. 2 million downloads. He has 6 million unique visitors each month. And the Khan Academy has been translated into 24 different languages. Okay? And I want to read you 2 quotes about Salman Khan. In Forbes magazine, which is one of the most influential magazines, it's a business magazine in the U.S., the headline is, "One Man, One Computer, 10 Million Students, How the Khan Academy is Reinventing Education." Another article from Wired magazine, "How Khan Academy is Changing the Rules of Education." Right? So this is an extraordinary model, and now what educators are doing is they're flipping education. Teachers are having the kids go home and listen to the Khan lectures. He is a fantastic lecturer, and they disseminate the information as homework. Then the kids come in and do their, quote, homework in the classroom, where they get personalized tutoring by the teacher each time any student has a problem. Right? So they get fantastic lectures that they can listen to over and over till they get it. Then they go to the classroom and they try and apply the knowledge in problem solving, and the teachers are there to tutor every kid individually while they're doing the homework. Putting the model upside down, helping teachers be extraordinarily effective because they get to teach right when kids are running into a problem, and they can help them get over the problem and solve what they're doing otherwise at homework, where they would just be stuck and they'd be given no tutoring. The next approach that's happened is started by a good friend of mine, Sebastian Thrun. So Sebastian Thrun, he's the guy at Google who invented the Google car that drives itself. He was in charge of the Google glasses. And then he heard a TED lecture by Salman Khan, and he decided that he was a professor at Stanford, and he was going to take the artificial intelligence course that he taught at Stanford, and he was going to teach it for free online. Now, I've talked to him about it, and when he decided to do it, he thought he would get 1,000 students. He thought he would get 1,000 students. And in the in the week after he announced this, the New York Times found out, and they wrote an article about a free Stanford lecture at the PhD level on artificial intelligence, and in a month he had 160,000 people sign up from around the world. Now, 23,000 of those kids from around the world finished the course, and here's the remarkable part. 1,000 of those kids got a better grade than the highest grade of any of the students in a Stanford PhD program. Now, I don't know about you, but this gives me chills, right? That you take what we think in America are the smartest kids in the world at Stanford in the PhD program, and you broadcast this for free, and it goes everywhere in the world, and there's 1,000 kids who would never get to Stanford, who wouldn't be able to afford to pay for Stanford, and it turns out they're smarter than the smartest kids at Stanford. And what I say about that is, my God, these are kids who should be getting free PhDs from the greatest universities in the world, because these are the kids who are going to win the next Nobel Prizes. They're going to win the Nobel Prize for Peace, Physics. We should unlock the genius of all of these kids wherever they are. And this is something that Sebastian Thrun, and the headlines on these papers are, the Stanford Education Experiment could change higher learning forever. And in Wired magazine, the headline was, how would you like a graduate degree for $100? Okay, so things are changing in a remarkable, democratic, no walls between brilliant kids, and the opportunity to be taught by the best professors in the world. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do, all right? And what we do is called assessment-based, real-time, adaptive, personalized learning. It's data-driven and produces incredible insights for every teacher of every student every day. Okay? So remember when I told you about the Bloom experiment, the Bloom study, right? And why is it these kids had good teachers, and the kids who stayed in that classroom with one teacher with 25 kids, the mediocre kids stayed mediocre. And why was it when they were personally tutored that they went from being mediocre to being extraordinarily good? Here's the problem. When you're a teacher and kids come into your classroom the first day, you know that some of these kids are already far behind, some of these kids are right at class level, and some of these kids are far ahead of class level. You have no idea which ones are which, but you know that. And you also know that every day these kids are going to learn at different paces. Some kids will learn very fast, some kids will learn slow, some kids will learn in between. And you also know that every day lots of these kids are going to get stuck. Something that you're trying to teach, they're not going to get. And you're going to keep going, and they're going to get stuck right there. And when kids get stuck on too many fundamental little bits of knowledge, they give up. And you've got the ability now, if you're a personal tutor, to understand every kid where they're starting, to understand how fast they're learning, but the most important thing is you can know the second they get stuck, and you can go to them and you can help every kid exactly when they're stuck, so they don't get clogged, they don't get stopped, they don't get frustrated, and they don't give up. Okay? So what we've created, and I want to share it with you now, is the idea of a personal tutor for every single kid and the ability to let the teacher know every day where every kid is in learning, and they can know when these kids get stuck, and they can go help those kids anytime any student gets stuck on anything. In other words, they become the most effective teachers in the world because they're personally helping every kid get unstuck before they get frustrated, before they feel dumb, and allow them to continue to learn until they become great. So now I'm going to go back here and I'm going to turn on the program. And maybe we go lights down a little bit. Might be easier to see. In any event. So one of the things that I want to say is that we created a virtual world. And the reason that we used a virtual... Now remember, this is for young kids software. This is not Khan Academy. This is not PhD. This is for young kids. And we wanted a virtual world, one, because kids like it. So kids come to our site, and the first day they adopt a little ant, and they name the little ant after themselves. Okay? Then they go to the store and they pick out an outfit that they're going to wear. And one of the things that they pick out is a backpack where they put all of the 1,500 awards that they win. And every award is pedagogy. It's a letter they learned, it's a sound they earned, it's a word they built, it's a story they built, or a musical DVD based upon that. They collect them in the backpacks. They go to the home and they learn where they keep all of the 67 books that they build, the stories they build, and all of the DVDs. They go adopt a little dog, because what happens is the ant learns to read and learns English. The little dog learns to read and learns English, but really it's the little kid who learns. And one of the things we know, when kids work through an avatar, they become less risk averse. If the avatar makes a mistake, it's too bad. It's the little avatar that made a mistake. It's not the little kid. So it moves them one step away from feeling like they've done something wrong, and it makes them more adventurous, more curious, and more confident. This part of the program is done in the first 6 minutes because we want to create an emotional tie between our little students and the program. After 6 minutes, they go to the ant swimming pool, and this is where we do the assessment, because we know that kids learn best when they're in what's called their zone of proximate learning. So every kid starts with a certain amount of knowledge and skills, and if we can put them in the program right where their skills are, then when we teach them the next little increment of knowledge, it'll be within their grasp, and they'll learn it. Then they get a little habit of just giving the next thing in their grasp. They nod their head each time, and all of a sudden they realize they're learning, and it becomes incredibly engaging. If you place kids in too low, they get into the game and they already know all the answers and they're bored to tears. If you place them too far in advance, they get frustrated, they feel dumb, and they quit. But if you put them in their zone of proximate learning at the initial assessment, they're ready to succeed. And we don't care. If kids are in first grade, they might assess into kindergarten. They might assess into first grade, they might assess into first grade, they might even assess into second grade. What's important to us is we put them in the game right where their skills are because they're different, and it's important to treat each child differently and appropriately. And I'll give you an idea of the engagement. One other thing I should say. Our coach and our flea speak Bahasa, because really little kids, when they come into the world, if we try and immerse them in English, it's very frustrating. So I want little kids, when they first come to Smarty Ants, if they don't speak English very well or at all, I want them to have the comfort of having the coach speak their language and teach the pedagogy in Bahasa. Then every teacher every day has the chance to click on that student's profile and switch them into full English immersion. The nice thing about that is when they flip, the kids feel like they're really empowered by their English because they already know what the instructions are by the coach because they've heard in Bahasan. And all of a sudden they're hearing the same in English, so they feel very proud and empowered in this immersion. But I think it's important to make sure that when kids are just beginning and if they really don't speak English, give them a soft takeoff for 3 months, maybe 6 months. Maybe talk to the kids. Would you like to try it all in English now? Giving kids choices turns out to be incredibly empowering. This is the coach speaking in English, meeting a kid for the first time. And by the way, this coach, this is the personal tutor for this little ant, who's Victor, who's got his name up here. This coach is really Professor Robert Calfee from Stanford and Professor David Pearson from University of California. One's the dean of the Graduate School of Education. So this is the best tutors you could possibly have in the disguise of a little ant coach.
Hey there! There you are. I've been looking for you.
Hey!
I'm so happy that you joined our team of Smarty Ants. I'm your coach, and I can't wait to get you into the game.
Me too.
I have an eye for talent, and I can see you've got what it takes to be a great reader.
Okay. Now I'm going to walk quickly through what we do in our pre-K program, and here's what we want to do for kids who are in pre-K. We want to expose them to great literature, which I'll show you in a minute. We want them to want to learn to read because they've been involved in so many great stories that are read to them that they can't wait to learn so that they can read stories to themselves. We want to model good fluency and prosody. We want to make sure that they're active listeners when they are being read a book. So it's not like TV where these little kids can just sit there and not do anything, just nod their head. We want them, when we read a story to them, to be thinking about the characters, the plot, and the theme, and then we do comprehension skills for the kids on the little stories we teach them. The other thing that we do from a pedagogical point of view is we teach kids the letters' names, but at the same time that we teach them the names, we teach them the sounds the letters represent. Okay? We teach them phonemic awareness. We want them to be able to hear words and hear the different sounds in the word. So when they hear the word cat, we want them to hear the k, the a, and the t, the phonemic awareness. We want them to know phonological awareness, what the letters are that make the sounds. And at the end of our pre-K program, the kids build 40 words that are consonant, vowel, consonant words, all around short vowel, a, I, u. So kids know that if they learn the names, if they learn the sounds of the letters, they'll be able to build words and they'll be able to read words. And when they get to kindergarten, if a teacher writes a C-A-T on the board, we want these kids not to say that's a C-A-T. We want the kids to go, that's a K-A-T, cat. Now I'm going to take some time because when we get to kindergarten and the first grade, so this is 5 and 6 and 7 years old. Oh, let me just do one thing. So I want to show you how we teach kids that the letters represent sounds. Because a lot of kids have trouble thinking that a letter represents a sound. So here's how we do it.
Can you pop these B's, which make the sound B? Remember, each time you click on the pump, you'll pump the sound into the letters.
Kids are
Let's
pumping.
Make the B sound together.
And they make these sounds.
B, 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 B. Good job.
And what we
Can
find...
you pop these B's, which make the sound?
What we find is from a conceptual point of view, this is very, very powerful. Now, kids in our pre-K program, they make their own virtual lowercase and uppercase book with letter sounds. So as they build this, let's say they've learned the letter A, we teach them that A goes A and A. We teach them words that start with the sound A. We teach them words that start with the sound A. And then they make a book about it, and we turn their book into a musical DVD. So each one of them feels like they're building this musical DVD. And we've got pictures of kids in pre-K sitting around on the floor singing this song at the top of their lungs. And it is, to me, inspirational and fun.
A makes two sounds, A and A. A in ape and A in ant. B says B in boy and bat. C says K in cap and cat. And sometimes C also says S like in city. D says D.
All right, and the nice thing about this is when kids get to the next grade and they can't remember the sound that B makes, they go, B says B, boy and bat, and they can remember it. So it's a very nice way for kids to memorize this tough concept that letters make sounds. And this is the story quiz show, and as I'll show you this, kids click on the words, the primary nouns and the primary verbs, and they get the words defined in Bahasa so they understand what the core of the story is about. So here they are in the story game show, and your little ant is in the middle in this game.
Bayi, burung hantu, tinggal, pohon,
Klik di kata yang
ibu, rumah.
Once there were 3 baby owls, Sarah and Percy and Bill. They lived in a hole in the trunk of a tree with their owl mother. The hole had twigs and leaves and owl feathers in it. It was their house.
Now the quiz.
Mereka lucu sekali.
hitung bayi burung hantunya. Ada berapa jumlahnya? 2, 3, 5. 5, 3, 5, 3, 3.
Now, I want to show you the data that we give to each teacher about each student every day and which the teacher can share with parents. So here's an example of the report. And what I want to point out to you here is this is the level 2, so it's lowercase letters, and these gray lines are the different stories that are being read to these kids where they do active listening, where they do comprehension skills. But in this case, what they're doing is this is a check. They've learned the name of the letter A, they've painted the letter A, they've pumped the letter A sound in, they've built the word ant using the A for the first letter, and the word ape using A for the first letter. They've built the words apple, alligator, and axe, all using A as the first letter, acorn, apron, and ace, all using A as the first letter. And then they did a quiz, and they understood that A had the name A and made the sounds A and A. Now I want to go into our kindergarten and first grade program, which is completely different, because here's what happened. Bob Calfee and David Pearson said, kids don't really like learning the names that letters make because it's boring, and who cares? But they said, teach the kids the fewest letter sounds as possible that would allow them to build the fewest words as possible that would allow them to build a story that they can read. And they said, as soon as they realize they can use sounds to build words and they can use words to build stories that they can read and print out and take home, then when you say, if you learn 2 more sounds, you can build better words and a better story, they will buy in. And we do that 67 times. The 67th time we do it, these kids have gone all the way from pre-K to the end of the first grade, and they've learned in English 1,500-word vocabulary, and they want to learn the vocabulary because these are the words in the stories that they build and they take home and read to their parents. Okay? So it's a very, very effective way of making it work, and I want to show you how we do it. These are examples of when we're teaching that A with a silent E makes the sound A when you pump, and the way you turn can into cane is by using a silent E. We also teach guided practice on kids listening for the A, the long A sound, and then we even go to the dance studio with 450 songs, and this is where we teach the AKE word family.
Listen to my silent E rhyming song. A-K-E makes ache. B and ache makes bake. K and ache makes cake. M and ache makes make. Cake, make, rake, lake. These words rhyme. These words bake, cake, make, lake, rhyme.
All right, now, what I told you was the first thing we do is we help the kids learn the sounds that they need to build the words. So here we're teaching them the sounds a, k, and f. And they get to choose where they want to play. They can do it on the treadmill, on the climbing wall, playing foursquare, in the A&T Stadium, or in the dog pound, or even in the snowboard park. This little kid chose to do it on the treadmill.
Jump on the letter that makes the sound. Wow! Jump on the letter that makes the sound. You're so smart! Jump on the letter that makes the sound.
Ah. Ah.
That's it. Go for it. You just won the sound.
Ah.
Okay, so that kid just got the sound a correct for the third time in a row. He won the sound, and it went into his backpack. And
jump on the letter that...
So now that we've taught the kids the sounds they need, we take them to do word building. Again, they choose where they want to build words, and they have 7 or 8 different places, different games they can use to build their words. And this little ant chose to do it on the climbing wall.
The first sound in the word pan is p. That's it. That's it. The middle sound in the word pan is
Ah. Ah.
yeah, you can do it. The last sound in the word pan is
And kids sound this out.
Ah.
An.
An.
Pan.
Pan.
wow, you're getting good at this. You just won the word pan.
So he just won the word pan. He went into his backpack, and he's going to use these words to build a story. So the next thing we do is we go do rhyming around the an, and the at ending. I'm going to skip that, but you can understand what it would be like. Then we do word automaticity. We want to make sure that they know the sounds, they know how to sound out a word. We want to make sure that they can read the individual words. So this time the ant decides to go to the dog race.
Click on the word
Cat. Cat.
click on the word
Cat. Cat.
After they've built all the words that they need, the words are in their backpack, and they choose where they want to build the story. So this little ant has chosen to build the story in the Storybot, but he could do it in the Dogtop computer. So here's how they take the words that they've earned and built, they take them from the backpack and put it into the
Storybot will now retrieve the words from your backpack.
Ant, cat, fan, for, man, map, mat, nan, gnat, pan, pap, pat, ran, rat.
Storybot will now retrieve the words from your backpack.
Ant.
So now the student builds his story in the Dogtop computer.
Pan for nan. Pan for nan. Map for pap. Map for pap.
After they built the story, it's turned into the little book that they created. And the camera bee comes by to take a picture to put in the Daily Woof newspaper, which is delivered at the beginning of every session. After they built a story, every one of the stories turns into a musical DVD. So this is the 12th story that these little kids build. Nina
Sad
Ant
Max.
built it.
Words by Nina Ant.
Max is sad. Max does not fit. My cap is odd. I have a rib.
Ned is his butt.
Ned begs Max. Max, do not quit. Caps are a fad. Rips we can fix.
Yes, Max.
Beg his pals. Jam on your sacks. So Max put his sax to his lip, and Max let it rip.
So you get a sense of how proud these kids are. Every time they build a story, it turns into a musical DVD, which they can play and listen to, share with their friends, or they can read the stories to their parents when they take it home. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to show you how we teach these vocabulary words to kids in Indonesia. So here's how it works. The first thing we do is for every word in the story, we do this exercise.
Bekerja. Work. Work.
Barb and Bart work on a farm.
Pertanian.
Farm.
R.
Arm. Farm.
Barb and Bart work on a farm.
Then we take kids and they go to the dog park race, and now we're going to give the word in Bahasa, and they find the word in English.
Temukan kata bahasa Inggris untuk pertanian.
Farm.
Oh yeah, temukan kata bahasa Inggris untuk bekerja.
Work.
Wah, aku terkesan. Temukan kata bahasa
After we've done this, they build the words, and in this lesson they're working on R-controlled vowels, so they're going to build some words.
Sekarang giliranmu untuk mencoba.
Barn.
Klik huruf yang membuat
R.
bunyi. Kau mendapatkannya.
R.
Arn.
Barn.
Sekarang giliranmu untuk mencoba.
Cart.
Klik huruf yang membuat
R.
bunyi. Kerja yang hebat, Smarty Ann.
R.
Art.
Cart.
Then we do word matching.
Fantastis! Sekarang saatnya mencocokkan beberapa kata untuk gambar-gambarnya. Ini gambar dari sebuah
Car.
Ketika kita melihat kata yang cocok dengan gambar ini, kita akan memilihnya. Aku akan mulai. Itu dia, kata
Car.
klik kata
Park.
kau mendapatkannya?
Park.
Then we take them to the diving pool. We call out the word in Bahasa, and they have to jump on it. And that's how we do the final assessment. But I want you to see that every click these kids have done in this demo, every click when they learned the letter sound, every click when they used the sounds to build words, every click when they showed that they could read the words, every click when they were in the in the Storybot computer, every click when they clicked on the words to make the story we measured, and every click that they did when they were trying to learn the word in English based upon Bahasa, we capture in our database. And I want to show you what we do with it, because this is where we give teachers the opportunity to be spectacularly effective. So what's happening here is this is a report to a teacher about one little kid, one little day in Lesson 9. And this kid had learned the sounds ol by pumping it in, aw by pumping it in, and s by pumping it in. Then the kid, we had taught him the vocabulary, and he learned what the word tot and lot and to meant. He was having trouble with sobs, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Then he built the words tot, sobs, lot, mom, and tom. And what you can see is the first 2 times that he built tot and sobs, the first time he used the soft O sound, the short O sound, he needed a little help, and after that he had it perfectly. But here's the other interesting thing that you know the second you look at this. This little kid has forgotten that the letter M makes the sound. So if the teacher goes over right now and says to this little child, you're doing great, you know ol and aw and s, but you've forgotten the letter that makes the sound, let's write it. It's the M, and it makes the sound The teacher is intervening at the exact moment that the kid's feeling a little frustrated, because then when the kid does word matching, he can read lot, tot, to, sobs, tom, but he's still having trouble with mom because he doesn't know the M sound. In vocabulary, he got 50% right. He missed tots and sobs. And in story building, he got 87% of the words right the very first time. And you know the exact words that he missed. Now they build the first half of the story and the second half of the story. And in the second half, in skill building and vocabulary, the kid knows log, dog, and stop, and needed a little bit of scaffolding on stops. In word building, he was fine building log and dog. In word matching, he built log and dog, but he had trouble with stop and stops. And we know why he had trouble, because we don't teach consonant blends until level 4, and this is in level 3. So this was a word we'd advanced forward, and sure, the kid had trouble because he knew stop and top, but he didn't know st, and he didn't know PS on stops. Really good. This whole thing's working. 50% on the vocabulary exam. Story building, only 47% right the first time, but 90% right the second time. So he's mastered these words in the context of building the story. He did the guided practice, letter sounds, word building, word matching, conversation. Lesson check, he got 50% on the comprehension. And now there's the recording. So whenever a kid builds a story, we record the kid reading the story page by page. And after they've read the story, we save it on the cloud. We tell the teacher that the story's been read. So now, 15 minutes on every Friday, a teacher can sit and listen to every kid read. And when they listen to the kids read, they can click on any word that the kid's having trouble reading, the student's having trouble reading. So they create a personal list, personal to each kid, which they can then tutor the kid on how to read the specific words that the kids had trouble reading. Okay? So it's very, very empowering, because those of you who are teachers know if you've got 25 kids in your class, it's very hard to find the time to sit and listen to each kid reading while all the other kids are doing whatever they're doing. But the fact that we can have you do it in 15 minutes after class on Friday, it's really empowering in terms of efficiency. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about our second grade curriculum, because in second grade, We want kids to learn how to read chapter books, and we want kids to learn how to read informational text. And in this case, we've written 9 science books. So here's what happens. Antigone, the Greek playwright, comes up to your little ant and says, hey, I understand you've become a good reader. I'm going to do a play based upon the book Hounslow and Katina. Would you like to help me put on the play? Your little ant says yes. You go with Antigone and your 2 other little friends, and you do a story review with Antigone, and you look at the pictures and you talk about the characters and the plot and the theme. Then Antigone gives you the book, which you take back to your little house, and you read it. And what we tell kids to do is click on any word that you can't read, and click twice if you don't know what it means in English. Okay? And they do that. Click, click, read, reads. All the kids can read. All the kids can read with comprehension, because the words will be read and they'll be given definitions. Come back to this because we take every word that they click and we create a personalized tutoring system for them on helping them read the words that they had trouble reading. Some kids have lots of words, some kids have very few, but we pick the exact bucket of skills that these kids need. Then the kids go in and do the recording studio. So I want to show you this. And this is something that's profound to me. Remember I told you that each kid gets to read their own story, okay? Record their own story. This little girl is from a very poor family in a very big city in the United States. And we know by looking at the data that when she entered 2nd grade, she didn't know the names of the letters. So she was entering 2nd grade and she should have been in preschool. She was skipped. She passed preschool. She passed kindergarten. She passed 1st grade. She started 2nd grade. And the first day of class, we told the teacher she shouldn't be in 2nd grade. She shouldn't be in 1st grade. She shouldn't be in kindergarten. She should be in preschool. And this little girl got 74 hours of Smarty Ants. And halfway through 2nd grade, she caught up. Okay? Personal tutor for this little girl for half a year, and she caught up from pre-K to K to 1 to 2. And I want you to hear her reading this little line in the story. And so she's going to be the actress in Hounslow and Katina, and she's going to be the role of Katina the dog. So here she is reading this line.
You're on your own now. But remember, you can always click a word to hear it, or click on me to hear me read the whole line.
So here's this little girl clicking on the microphone.
I did not ask you if your book it was going to win prizes. I asked how the writing was going.
Now she's going to stop. Now replay so she can listen to herself read.
I did not ask you if your book it was going to win prizes. I asked how the writing was going.
Now she clicks that she likes it. And it goes up to the cloud for the teacher to be able to listen to, and I'll show you how that works. Then they go into the Greek theater. This is that little girl dressed up in the Hounslow costume. Her little friend is in the Katina costume. They put on this play in front of all the other ants with the Greek theater, and every time it's Hounslow line, it's her little recording that she did. Now the last thing I want to talk about is informational text, because kids can learn to read fiction, but they have trouble when they're learning to read things like science, because the vocabulary is difficult, but it's also hard for them to understand how informational text is organized. So what happens is Albert Einstein comes to the little ant and says, hey, Antigone told me you were a big help in Hounslow and Katina, and I need your help teaching science. And he says, meet me in the Greek theater. So your little ant meets Einstein, and Einstein says, I need to write an outline to organize what I'm going to write in my book. And so he says, the first thing is the title of the book. It's about life cycles. In The little ant says, I don't know what a cycle is. And Einstein draws a little picture of a wheel and explains what a life cycle is. Then he talks about the main points, the examples, and the exceptions. So little kids can hear an author talking about how he's going to organize the information in the book that he's going to read. Then he writes the book, he gives it to the little ant to read. The little ant reads it, clicks on any word they can't read, clicks twice for definitions. They read it and we record it. They do a summary of the little book, and then they put on a production of 9 different science topics in the 2nd grade. Okay? So now I want to show you what we learn while they're doing this. This is a little kid who we taught right at this level how to divide words into syllables. The kid was very good on dividing enjoy, forget, invite, poppy, cannot, proudly, wonder. This kid clicked on 10% of the words while he was reading it, and here are the words they were having trouble with. The student had comprehension 3 out of 4 questions right, so good comprehension. Did very well in script building, and right here is where the teacher clicks to hear that little student read. So let me click this, and I'll show you what you teachers will be able to do anytime you want to listen to the student reading this material. Click on the recording. The teacher clicks on the recording. They click on forward. This is the line that the little kid's reading.
How is your writing going?
So she read it all, each word correctly. She goes to the next line. She plays play.
Hey, read it.
And here's that same little
I
girl.
did not ask you if your book it was going to win prizes. I asked how the writing was going.
Okay, so you can see what the teacher did. She clicked on each word that the little child was having trouble reading, and these words go on a personal list for each kid so that the teacher can work with each student on the specific words that they're having trouble reading. Now, what I want to show you is, in 2nd grade, we're teaching these kids the common phonogram old. This little kid watched the teaching video, had no trouble building the words told, hold, cold, mold, or gold, and in word matching. Then we taught the kid the common phonogram IGHT, ite. The kid watched the teaching video and had no trouble building night, might, fight, right, bright, or word matching. Then we taught the little kid the sound that EW makes in ooh. The kid watched the teaching video, did the sound pump, and had no trouble building the words with ooh, knew, flew, grew, blue, or word matching. And the next thing we do, and I told you about this, is these are the words that the kid clicked. So it's very interesting, at least to me. Every time the kid got to a word which had the long vowel after a consonant, the kid clicked on it. He couldn't read he or be or me, and we know why. The kid went b, be, and ha, and meh. He forgot that when you have a consonant and a vowel, the vowel is long. So we taught him the teaching video, he got it right, and he did word matching. Then the kid clicked on the words best, soft, help, just, and went. And we know that this kid has trouble with ending blends. Kid watched the teaching video, built all the words easily, and did word matching. The kid then clicked on words with the schwa A sound. The kid didn't remember that sometimes when the first syllable is an A, the A goes like a U. He watched the video and he built easily again, about, away, around, along, above, etc. This kid had forgotten in the last level that SH goes sh. We showed him the video, and he got word building, shot, mesh, hush, shin, and word matching fine. And finally, this kid forgot the short I, and here's what is interesting. This is right where this kid is working, right when the teacher looks at this report. The kid is working on the short I, and he's built the words sit and did, and you can see that right away he's remembered that the short I makes the sound I. Okay? Just one last thing that I want to show you, and that is what we do. There's lots of rewards. There's the Daily Wolf newspaper. The kids print out their story every time. They get Smarty coins, which they go and buy things for themselves. There's a graduation ceremony. We print out a diploma after every level. And now we tell the district coordinator, the principal, and the teacher where every kid assessed on the first day of class. So this is a big, big district with 6,000 kids, and 1,100 of them assessed at level 7. They're in the first grade, and that's where they should assess. About half the class assessed above it, about half the class assessed below it. These kids were a quarter behind, these were up to a year behind, and these kids were all the way back in pre-K. In fact, that little girl that we heard on the recording was right here. Okay? So you know, your teacher, your principal knows where all the kids assessed at the very beginning. The teacher knows. And then what we do is we watch how quickly these kids are learning. And so what happens here is that you can look at all the kids who initially assessed in level 1, even though they're supposed to be up here in the first grade. And you can see after 3 weeks, these kids are not catching up. These kids are catching up, and they'll end up within a year. These kids are catching up, and they'll only be a quarter behind. And all of these kids will catch all the way up 3 years if they keep learning at the pace that they're in. And that's because the kids who are catching up completely are playing the game. They're catching up 3 grades. They're playing the game 3.5 hours a week. The kids who are going to be a quarter behind at the end of this class are only doing it 2.5 hours a week. The kids who are a full grade behind and are staying a full grade behind are only doing 2 hours a week. And the kids who started 3 years behind and over 2 years behind are only playing for 1.5 hours. So we're teaching fidelity, and we're telling the teacher exactly how much time kids need to be in the game if they want to catch up from being far behind. Okay, so I know now, that it's time for questions and answers. So I really hope you guys have lots of questions, and I'd be honored to answer them for you. Anyone have any questions?
I am Hendra. I think teaching English is different than teaching Bahasa. Because in English, there is no standard for like the P and the A and the what. You have too many.
Yes.
Maybe you design the software using the phonetics. Like an A is a standard written like this. In dictionaries. You know what I mean?
No. I'm sorry.
So
Clarinda, do you understand? Do you understand the question?
No. Like an A, if you write like this.
An A.
But in the pronunciation, it's written like a symbol yang different.
Oh, well.
You combine with this, and the children know how to pronounce it correctly without confusing this, why this P is different than
this. So what we teach them is when the A makes the A sound, it's usually because it's between 2 consonants. It makes the A sound if it's got another vowel after it. So A-I, A, A-Y, A. Or if there's a consonant and an E, it'll make the A say its name. So it's like learning a really complicated puzzle, but once you know the rules, it's easy. So you know when the A will make the short sound in a word. It'll say its name. It'll say it if it's got a vowel after it, if it's got a long vowel silent E, or if when you make the syllables and break it up, like in table, if a syllable ends with a vowel like TA in table, the A will say its name. So we teach all of the rules to let kids know when an A goes ah and when an A goes A. Is that what you were asking?
Yes.
In any event, that's my answer.
Second is, you have a program for normal kids.
Yes.
But not for who cannot hear, deaf
Yes.
kids.
So I wish we did. I've been contacted by the U.S. Deaf Association, and if I had enough time and money, I would work on making it apply for deaf kids. But the third member of our Educational Advisory Board, this is a nice story. The third member of my Educational Advisory Board, her name is Mia Callahan, and she was my roommate at Stanford. Not my roommate. She was in my dorm at Stanford. Pardon me. She really wasn't my roommate. And when her daughter Carly was 7, the school called Mia and her husband in to the classroom, and they had tested her, and they said to Mia, "You've got an extraordinary daughter. Highest IQ we've ever tested, worst dyslexia we've ever tested." And they said to Mia and Rick, "You're going to have to change your expectation about how Carly, that's the daughter, is going to learn in school, because it's going to be devastating." And Mia, bless her heart, got her master's degree in teaching kids with dyslexia how to read. Carly became a good reader. She got accepted to University of California, Berkeley, and when she went to that college, her mom, my friend Mia, went to the same college to get her PhD in early learning. Okay? Carly graduated from Berkeley, and she's a school psychologist. My friend Mia has her PhD, and when we started Leapfrog, I said, "Mia, I want you to be on our Educational Advisory Board, and I want you to make sure everything we do in Smarty Ants is exactly what kids with severe dyslexia need so that they can become great readers." And Mia is the most active member of our Educational Advisory Board, and everything we do up here, every bit of scaffolding, every pump the letters, all of these things are done because Mia said this is the best way to help dyslexic kids learn to read. So we've got a really good track record on this working. I know you didn't ask about dyslexic kids, but it raised my memory about how it's worked. So the nice thing about this is I built it for kids who are struggling, but because we move kids just as fast as they learn, it works for kids who are really accelerated because they go through it very, very, very fast and they find it thrilling. We move it slowly for kids who are taking longer to learn, but the very fact that it's real-time adaptive and it's personalized makes it work great for really fast readers and great for really slow readers because they're all taught at their own pace. See, because you don't have many questions, I'm going to give you long answers. All right. Are there any other questions? Yeah.
Just on you say you talk about how important it is to assess at the first stage.
Yes.
How robust is that?
So this is a great question. So let me answer it. Here's how robust it is. Teachers have the right to readjust the assessment or to redo an assessment. They do it 3% of the time. So we're 97% good, 3% bad. Now the problem is that when you're wrong, it's draconian. Because if you assess into the wrong level behind, kids are bored all the way through it. And if you assess ahead, they get frustrated because they don't know the background knowledge. We did one thing, though, that I wanted to share with you that I think is interesting. I don't know if you know this, but at least in the U.S. in schools, kids of extreme poverty, during the summer when school's out, they don't go forward, they go back. And they go back up to 1/3 of a year each summer. So think, these are the kids I care most about. We work so hard for them to catch up. And in the summer, when they're not taught at all, they go backwards 1/3 of a year. Now here's what we know about these kids. They actually learned this stuff, but they forgot it during the summer. So we don't want to place them back 1/3 of the year. So instead what we do is a micro-assessment of every skill in the lesson that they went back into. we assess to determine which of the skills they've forgotten, and then we do a specific micro remediation for these kids on exactly on those skills. So essentially what happens is these kids they forgot back to 1/3 of a year, but in about 3 weeks we can remind them of what they've learned and they can catch back up. And it's a way, let me say one other thing. At the end of each lesson, we do a micro assessment of all of the skills. So even though when we assess them in, it's a rougher cut, at the end we look at every one of the skills and make sure that they've mastered them. And then before they start the next level, we do a new assessment to make sure that they don't already know that level, so before we put them into it. Thanks for the question. Any other questions? Oh, yes. Thank you.
I wanted to ask about if the children have a problem in their work, like for example that you said M, and then you should the sound should be Can you help them at the same day, or do you have to help them on the following day? I mean the problem.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's two things. The answer is you don't have to do it the same day. In fact, very few teachers do. If you do it the same week, it's good. But let me give you one other thing that's more encouraging. One of the nice things that we do on that kid who missed mom because he couldn't pronounce every time these kids build new words, anytime they have trouble with a word, we stop, they pump the sound into the letter, we ask them to find the letter that makes that sound again, and then they go on. So we continue, when kids are struggling on anything, every time they build a word using that letter, we monitor it and we bring the skill building up to them in whatever level it is. We don't want to put them back. We bring the specific teaching video back up to them wherever they are. So the teacher will come in and remediate, but even if the teacher doesn't, they will continue to get remediation every time they use that sound until they've got full mastery of it. So teacher's not alone, but what we find is if teachers are paying attention to kids in the program, kids progress about twice as fast. Kids love it when a teacher comes up and says, hey, congratulations. I saw that you built that story and I listened to you read it last night and you were terrific. These kids, it makes their hearts soar. And if you can say, and I understand that you built the words cat, hat, and rat, and you had trouble with the word mom, and that's easy. All you need to do is learn the sound. So what we know is that teachers who actively use this program, that is, use it to help them be better teachers, it helps the kids move about twice as fast. So people say, is this going to replace a teacher? I said, are you crazy? This is going to make teachers even more valuable because they'll be able to teach right at the point of each kid's problem before they get stuck or discouraged. I mean, to me, it makes all of us teachers better teachers and the ability to teach all of these kids essentially individually. Okay. Maybe, yes, thank you.
I want to ask about, actually I have ever seen about the program like this before, that some kind software program like PP Panda, Clifford Reading, some kind like that, and almost similar, but I think this is more interesting. And just now I saw that, if I'm not mistaken, have two sounds for Just now I heard and m. So
yeah. So here's a really good question. This is a really intellectual question because the sound of consonants really shouldn't have the vowel sound afterwards. All right? It should be k, not k, and p, not p. And you said not m. Here's the problem. When you've got fricatives, where the sounds are very similar, unless you extend a vowel sound, kids can't distinguish. So the problem with what you recognized is the problem is and sound the same, right? I don't know. If you go n, it sounds different. So it's not purely correct, but it's necessary to do in order to help kids distinguish the close sounds. T and d, right? T, d, t, 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 t. Hard to tell. T, d, easy. So that's why we did it. It's a great question. It's not precisely right, but if you want to do effective teaching, sometimes you have to make that extension. Thank you for paying attention. That's a really good question. Yeah. Okay, maybe that's one last question, or I'm happy to wrap it up. And by the way, if any of you are shy, I'm going to be here if you just want to ask me personally a question, and I'd be honored to say hi, and I'd be honored to answer any questions. Yes.
I just want to know how effective this program will work, because some of the students in Indonesia, English is not our mother tongue.
Yes.
So if we only use this in the school and they never practice it again at home, do you think it's going to be effective for them to speak English in a short time maybe?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So the short answer is the more you use English while you're learning, the better, right? It's like anything that you learn. If the only place you ever learn it is in class and you never use it anywhere else, it's much harder. What do I think in terms of, are you better using this than not using a program? Lots better using this. And if you can get kids just far enough that they can begin to read stories in English, which you can clearly by the second grade program, and then if they have English books to read, they'll build their own vocabulary. And if they want to watch a TV show in English, or if they want to watch a movie in English, they'll be able to do it because we provide enough of a vocabulary of nouns and verbs and adjectives and some adverbs that they'll understand what the story's about. So I think here's what I think. I think it builds a very good foundation, and it gives kids it is much better if in addition to this, they're talking with a teacher, an English teacher, they're doing exercises in class with an English teacher. I think it really helps this. If they're talking some English at home, I think it really helps. We've got some kids, one other thing I should say is that we have a program where parents can also have this program at home. And if they work with the school and they use their student ID at home, everything that they do at home, so kids can use it at home, after school, during the weekends, and even during the summer. And all of the data that they're using when they're playing at home goes up to the cloud and comes to the teacher in the district. So one good thing that we have is the ability to give kids access at home, particularly if kids are behind, and allow them to use it to catch up or get ahead. Then the last part of my answer is, even if there's no effective English at home, and my point was, some parents sign up to learn to read English and to speak English with Smarty Ants while their kids are learning. Now, it's important that they get their own license. Otherwise, it looks like the kid is learning a lot because the parents at night are going really far. But we have to warn parents not to do that. But my point is, if they're using Smarty Ants, and if they do it for 2 or 3 years, they get far enough that they're able to read second grade chapter books and understand it, and they're able to watch English on English TV or movies, and they can get lots of reinforcement that way. You just have to get far enough that you have a big enough vocabulary that when you're listening or reading, you know enough to understand what it means, and then you can begin to figure out the words in between. So, thank you for asking. That it? Yes. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much for your presentation. Before we go off, we have this. Thank you. we have this tradition where the speaker would take picture with our logo.
Oh, great.
Ya. And untuk Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, terima kasih sudah berpartisipasi pada event kita hari ini. Kalau misalkan masih ada pertanyaan lebih lanjut, boleh nanti ditanya in person dengan Bapak Mike setelah acara ini. Selain itu, terima kasih. Semoga kita bisa bertemu lagi di event At America selanjutnya. Selamat siang.
You were standing in the wake of devastation, and you were waiting on the edge of the unknown, and with the cataclysm raining down, insides crying.